All right, we are live stream now. And Ed, this is pretty loud for me. If you could tone it down a little bit. For those of you staying for our meeting, this is the town hall meeting where we're going to be talking about a change in structure of the church administration. My name is Ron Chidsey. You will, most of you know who I am, but you know that I am involved in the music ministry. Sometimes you'll see me up here singing. Sometimes you'll see me over here playing bells. Sometimes you'll see me over here playing a clarinet. But I'm involved in the music ministry here. Sometimes you'll see me go in and out of that room because I'm involved in the technology ministry, part of the technology team here. Sometimes you'll see me talking up at this microphone up here, telling you about Kids Hope, because I am also the director of the Kids Hope ministry here at the church. And I'm also involved in the Brunswick United Methodist Church Men's Golf League. I'm a co-coordinator of that. And I am currently serving as the admin chair for the Administration Council. But that's not the reason I'm doing this talk today. The reason I'm doing this talk today is I got the short straw. So, anyway, today what I'd like to do is, thank you all for staying, by the way, and we hope to get within 30 minutes to give you an idea of what this is all about. When you leave, I hope you can answer 3 questions. One is why, and the other is how, and the third one is when. So when you leave now, you'll know the what, the why, and the how, and we certainly can take questions. We have people ready to write down questions if you have any. So, because this is the first time we've started presenting, and this is something that we started back in January for the short committee, and you'll see the committee on the screen in a minute. But we started thinking about this in January, and we come to the point now where we want to say to the congregation, here's what we are looking at. And it's not a done deal yet, because in September, hopefully we will be able to be at a point where we can have a church council or church conference where all of the members can vote yay or nay on whether we go to this procedure. So let's... The introduction to Simplified Structural Ministry Effectiveness, that is a big, long word. We go by SAS, the Simplified Accountability Structure. That's a much simpler thing for me to remember. So the agenda is how we talked about how it works. We're going to talk about the purpose. The ministry teams we're going to talk about. The members of the leadership board we'll talk about, and we're going to talk about how we can be more accountable to Christ and to the church. This is the discernment team. I have to look over here because back there I can't read it there. But these are the people that have been working since January studying. We have a book that looks a lot like this. In fact, this is the book that we've all read, and we've taking a look at the ins and outs and what the pros and cons of turning to a different kind of a system. But these are the people that have been meeting and reading that book and talking about what it would be like if we do any changes. And we also have a prayer team that is praying for the discernment team. Discernment is a fancy name to mean, let's look into this. And but these are the people that have volunteered to be our prayer ministry, to pray us along the way and to keep us centered on God. So how does it work? Basically, now we have 4 groups that serve the church. We have the finance team, we have the trustees, we have the SPRC, and we have the admin council. So those are the 4 main groups that we need people to serve on. In this model, we have 1 board of 9 members. With the 4 admin council, trustees, finance, and SPRC, that sometimes takes 25, 30 people to fill all those positions. But with this system, we have just 9 people on the board that will serve all of those functions, plus the pastor is on that board making the 10th person. This is authorized by the Book of Discipline. We need to contact the district superintendent, which we have done. We've written them a letter. He knows that we are doing this. We are doing this. We also have a mentor that is helping us through this process, Reverend Duan Bui. Okay, I wasn't sure of the last pronunciation, but he's probably watching today, so hello, wherever you are. But he's helping us go through this, this process so that we make sure we have all of the T's crossed and the I's dotted, so we know that we're doing everything. One of the things we want to do is make sure that we are transparent in everything we do so that everybody knows what the process is all about. So, purpose is of the board is to make governing type decisions, not the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts kind of things. But the governing type decisions are decisions having to do with policy and how do we do things in our church. We're not going to be working with the teams, which we'll talk about later. And we're going to focus on the mission of our church, our mission of our whole church, and the vision of our church. The vision of our church, as you know, is Christ Community Connect. And the mission, as I recall, is bringing disciples to Christ. I don't know how, if it's...
Making disciples for Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world.
Making disciples for Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. I didn't have the words there, but thank you for having that.
That is the mission statement of the United Methodist.
Mission of the United Methodist Church. So we want to make sure we're in all of that and we're complying to all of that. The board will meet monthly as it does now, and all the board members will be members of this church, professional members of the church that are involved in this church. Other committees are going to be transitioning to teams. So we've got a technology team over there. We've got the choir team. We've got the handbell team. We've got the church band team. We've got food teams. We've got a food mission in this group. So we have a breakfast team. We have a fish dinner team. You see how the teams are going to work. All the teams are not ongoing. They're just meet to do a job, and then they don't have to be on that team anymore. But everybody, a lot of people are on multiple teams. You know, you think about your involvement with the church and what you've been involved over the years. You've been on many teams. So we're going to still keep the teams, and each team will have a leader. We have the Kids Hope team, Kids Hope Ministry, of which I'm the leader. I will be in constant contact with the church leadership to make sure they know what that team is doing. Yes?
Yeah, can I just jump in? I've got.
Oh, you've got yours on. Okay.
So a couple other things. Those of you who are trustees, the vast majority of what trustees do is church maintenance. We couldn't live without the trustees. You guys do so much. And guys and gals. And so the trustees will become the building maintenance team. Okay? Now the higher level things like decisions as to whether or not sell the house or things like that, those are the trustee type functions that the leadership board will retain. And then you'll have this church maintenance team who are the current trustees still doing what you do. Those of you who are involved with the money, the treasurer and financial secretaries, the people who do the counting, you'll still do that. We will call you a finance team. You will be the finance team. So we won't have a finance committee, but we will have a finance team doing all those ministerial jobs, those important functions that you do all the time. So if there's other groups you have questions about what will happen to them, just ask me. I hope I've preempted a few questions there.
So basically, all of those committees that have been in existence before will still be in existence. We just call them a team versus the name we've been calling them before. Nominations committee is going to be a separate entity because they are the people that will nominate people for the leadership board. And I think I'm going to talk about now, the leadership board will be 9 people. 3 of the people, every year, 3 new people are going to be selected by the nomination team. So that there's going to be a rotation. Every year, 3 more people are going to be rotated on the board. So the first year, there'll be 3 people that are serving 1 year, 3 people that are serving 2 years, and 3 people will be serving 3 years. So after that first year, then the people on 1 year will be rotated off, and we'll get people again that will be a 3-year term. So every year, then, after the initial rotation, every year 3 new people are going to be on the board. And I think, and this is my memory here, if you're on the board and you're rotated off, you need to take at least 1 year without being a board member. Is that correct? Before you're on again?
That's a guiding principle that we'd have to establish, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And that way you allow other people to come on, and we develop new leaders.
Yeah.
And we have a variety of people in leadership. But also some people are just good, solid leaders, and you give them a chance to
Right.
serve more than once in that position.
All right, so let's move on here. Ministry teams, we've already talked about how they're going to work. The team will have a leader. The leader then report to the pastor, and the leadership team leaders do not necessarily need to be at the leadership board meeting each month. By the way, the leadership board meeting is open to anybody in the church. They can all come and listen into what's happening. Only the leadership board have a vote, though. So that's, again, it's being transparent. You can come out, and anything that's of concern to you, you can certainly come in and sit in on that board meeting. This allows for short-term commitment and flexibility. When we're talking about teams, you can come and join a team just for that specific job, and when that job is done, you can be off that team. Or every time, I'm thinking of the fair booth, for example, is just a one week during the summer that we've traditionally done that. You can work on that team and then not be on the team. So teams are flexible as far as whether you're on the team or not, and you only meet when needed. Again, if an event is coming up that your team is going to be in charge of it, that's when you'll be meeting to organize that. The guiding principles are set by the board, and the guiding principles are the policies that we adhere to in this church, and that will be set by the board. Okay, I believe this is the time when you are going to take over. See, he got the second shortest straw, so that's why he's here.
Yeah. All right. So the leadership. Now, Ron already talked about... I've got my own clicker if I brought the one from... All right. So Ron already talked about the fact there are 9 members, and we're combining the functions of staff, parish relations, the administrative council, the higher functions, the non-maintenance functions of the trustees and finance, all combining into one. And I do want to, some people may be concerned about having 9 people. If we could fill out all these committees that we have now, it would take 30 or 40 people to run this church. We don't even come close. All right, this is the 3rd church I've served at, and I have never been able to fill out all those committees in a way that we had, a third of the committee rotating off every year as they're supposed to. The way it works now in every church I've been in, and I think in most churches, is you're desperate to get someone on the finance committee or someone on trustees, and once they volunteer to do that, they are there for life or until they just say, I quit, I can't do it anymore. And that's not what we want to do. And the reality in this church is we have 12 or 14 people who do the vast majority of all of that work. When we were talking about this in one of our first meetings, one of the interesting things that came up was we really do struggle to find enough people to fill out those committees. But when it comes to real ministry work, the stuff the teams will be doing, we don't really have trouble finding people who are willing to do that. And that is an important point. And that shows that you all understand that God doesn't want us here to do administration. God wants us to transform the world. God wants us to make this world a better place. And we're not going to do that sitting in meetings talking about policies and money, and all that stuff's important, but it's not where all the focus should be. And so I think that this form of governing the church will actually help us move more towards where we actually are functioning. We have far more people out there doing things, running meals and Sunday school and all those things, than we do going to administrative meetings and administrative council and things like that. And so this is a model of church governance that kind of will fit really well into the way we're actually doing things now. All right. So I just have this slide because these are, the rule book for the United Methodist Church is the discipline. It's very poorly named. But it's got a lot of stuff about our doctrine, our beliefs, and also the rules that we operate our churches by. And so we're required to have a board chair. We're required to have a lay member to annual conference and a lay leader. The lay member to annual conference may or may not be on the board, but the lay leader will be a board member, and we will have a board chair. So in that way, we will in every way, we will comply with the United Methodist Book of Discipline. So here the board, there will be an emphasis on spiritual leadership. And we're going to start with training. This is a big book, but it's got it's a really good book. I don't know if I mentioned this. I did this at my last church, by the way. Okay, at Northampton, we transitioned from all the committees to the single board, and it worked really well. I was not aware of this book. If I had been, we would have done a better job, because there were some things I've learned that we didn't do as well as we could have, and we're doing that now. So people who come onto the board, the nominations committee is always going to be looking for potential leaders. And we're going to train people in how we do it. We're going to train people in how it works. And we're going to be looking for people who have demonstrated some spiritual growth in their lives, who are active in church, and people who are showing the fruit of having God active in their lives. And as a board, we are going to work to grow closer to God together. More than just a devotional. We'll do studies together. The book says that, it doesn't suggest, it says we should have an annual retreat. And the retreat focused on spiritual growth and things like that. We will have accountability. We'll talk about accountability in a minute. But there are churches where there are people and pastors who seem to not be accountable to anyone. This is not that kind of thing. There is accountability for doing the mission, for focusing on mission. There's accountability for everything in this model. And a leadership covenant is utilized. The leadership covenant really is something, and we'll develop it, and the book has some examples, but it's just how the board will deal with each other. How the board should give some advice on how they should live their Christian lives, things like that. All right, so accountability. Let's talk accountability. So first of all, the board is accountable to Jesus Christ, right? We all are accountable to Jesus Christ. But this model is established by the congregation, and board members are selected by the nominations committee, which is elected by the congregation. And so in all of those respects, just like now, the board is accountable to you, the church members, through the charge or church conference. That's our annual business conference every year, where we elect all of the officers and approve whatever needs to be approved. And there's also the fiduciary responsibility. The board will have a fiduciary responsibility, and we'll probably put something about it in the covenants, to do the best that we can and manage the money of this church in ways that fit the vision and the mission and is done properly and above board. And everything will be transparent in this process, where we're discerning and looking at it, there will be transparency. As we operate, there will be transparency. The board, as Ron said, the board meetings will be open. There may be times when they're functioning as the Staff Parish Relations Committee where they need to go into executive session and close to talk about personnel issues or things. And then they would, people would have to leave the room. But that happens. But the vast majority of church business will be out and in the open. All right, so accountability for me. This board will hold the senior pastor accountable in partnership with the district superintendent. And so, a lot of ways that the pastor will be held accountable. First of all is just simply through the monthly meetings. All right, so the board will establish, we have a mission statement, and we even have a vision. And the board might tweak our vision from now and then. And the board will establish guiding principles, policies that the church will operate, all the teams, all the ministries and missions will operate under to kind of keep us focused on that vision. And it is my job as the pastor to help the teams work and operate and live within the vision and the guiding principles and the mission of our church. And so just in our discussions, if something has gotten outside of those parameters, that's on me, and I need to deal with it. So that's one way that I will be held accountable. I should also be held accountable through annual evaluations. Every church should have that for their pastor. And, and through goal setting. This leadership board will set goals, big, high-level goals, God-sized goals that will push this church in the direction that our vision takes us. And it's my job and the staff's job to help all of you as the church to live out those goals and to enact those goals. And so I will have personal goals every year that we will sit down. I'll sit down with the leadership team and write them down. And you all will know them and see what they are. It'll be part of our charge conference, or should be. And those goals are goals that will help push us, the church, toward its vision. And I'm accountable for fulfilling those goals each year. And so we'll have discussions at these leadership board meetings as to how I'm doing with my goals. And if I'm having problems with my goals, okay, what is the problem? Do we need to tweak something? Do we need to change something? But in all those ways, I will be held accountable. And the point of all this is to keep this church focused on a mission and on a vision, and to empower all of you, to empower the people of the church to do ministry for Jesus Christ. All right, so next we have a diagram. I don't know how easy that is to see. All right, at the top you see that triangle, Jesus Christ, the Great Commission, and the Church Charge Conference, which is all of you. You are accountable to Jesus Christ, as is the leadership board and all of us. We are all accountable to Jesus. You see the nominations committee off to the side because they come from the church, come from the charge conference. I am the chair. And underneath the leadership board is me. Okay, so I am the head manager of the church. And I have a staff, both paid and volunteer. We have a lot of those of you who are really involved in things. Some of you are unpaid staff members. God bless you. We appreciate all that you do. And so we will manage and empower the ministry teams. And so you have lay ministry, team leader, lay ministry, staff members, building maintenance team. All of these teams are going to be doing things. And the team could be the Bible school team. A team could be the choir, and they're doing mission and ministry. And it is my job to help people do the ministry that God has called them to. A great example I'll bring up. Years ago when Heidi and I got married in 2010, she had been involved in a ministry called Divorce Care. It's a Christian curriculum for people who are going through divorces. And in her previous church, she had gone through that and then she helped teach it. Well, we got married and she moved to Strongsville with Hayden and Jenny and started coming to the Strongsville United Methodist Church. And Heidi felt called to do that ministry in Strongsville. They didn't have anything like that. So she went to the pastors and showed them the curriculum, and they agreed that, this is a great idea. And they helped Heidi find people who were like-minded, and they found some people to help her with that. And they had them, the church had the resources. The church bought the curriculum and the books and the DVDs. And that ministry is still functioning, being very fruitful at the Strongsville United Methodist Church. And I've always thought that is a great example of how ministry should work. And that is a great example of how this model is designed to work. God is calling one of you, or all of you, actually God is calling all of you to something. You come to me or one of the staff members and say, hey, I feel called to do this. I really want to do this. And our job is to make sure that what you want to do, what you feel called to do, fits within our mission and our vision and the guiding principles that we have. If not, maybe we tweak it and talk about it. And then help you find the resources that you need to do the ministry that God is calling you can do. And here we get to the why, and I think I've just answered one of the whys. It focuses, the second bullet point focuses, I just talked about that, focuses leadership and members on the mission and vision. The first bullet point, streamlining decision-making, that's important too, and I want to talk about that just briefly because we did this we switched to this form of church governance at Northampton, and just a great example that I saw, and it's a really good example because it involves staff parish relations, the finance committee, and the administrative council, and even the trustees, because there's a house involved. And that's like when a new pastor's coming in. So you have a new pastor coming in, and there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. The trustees are concerned about the parsonage. Are they going to live in the parsonage? What do we need to do the parsonage? You've got all that going on. You've got talk about salary and benefits. And so the finance committee is involved because there's money involved in it. The trustees are involved because they probably got to do some work in a house. The staff parish relations committee is involved because they're involved in helping pick the potential. You're looking at potential candidates, and so you have all these different meetings. And I'm not picking on this particular church. At most churches that have all those committees, you go from committee meeting, and then you take the whole thing to another committee meeting, and then another committee meeting. You go through your whole cycle of meetings, and then at the end of the month at church council, you realize, well, we still got to go back to trustees with this, or to finance with that. So you go through another month of going from meeting to meeting to meeting. Well, when we had this meeting at Northampton regarding the pastor who was following me, I mean, I wasn't that involved in it because, that was my replacement, but I was there in the meeting. One meeting. It all worked out in one meeting. They approved salary, they approved everything they needed for the pastor. They talked about what needed. She was moving into the parsonage, and the renters had just moved out. And so they were talking about, they worked out what they needed to do to get the parsonage ready in one single meeting. And so that's the efficiency and streamlining of decision-making that can really make a big difference and take away a lot of frustration that probably all of us have felt. I talked a little bit about developing leaders. In this model, we're always looking for 3 more people for next year. And so we're looking out at the people on teams, and we're looking for, the nominations committee is looking for folks who are showing some growth and showing that they might be interested or in this kind of leadership at this level in the church. And I think that, people, if they feel called to it, may come to us and say, hey, I'm interested in being on this board. We've talked about the accountability. There are churches where there is a lack of accountability, and those are for the most part dysfunctional churches, and we will not be that. And the biggest why is it enables us to live out the mission and the vision of the church. That's the driving force behind everything that we're doing. And here we talk about the ultimate hope. The ultimate hope is that, once again, mission and vision will drive everything we do, that will allow ourselves to set God-sized goals, set goals that we know that we could do, but maybe God can. To push outside of our comfort zones and do more than we think we can do because we know God can do it. And it empowers. Empowerment is a big word here. It empowers the people in the church to do ministry and to serve God in the way that they're being called. All right, that ends the presentation part. Questions? Ron has all the answers.
Am I still on? First, thank you for coming. If there are questions, we'll take them now, but again, the timeline started in January, now it's April. We're coming to you to start thinking about this in probably about October, actually September.
September will be
We're
the first.
planning on having a church conference where all of you can vote whether we go ahead with this or not go ahead with this. And if the church votes to go ahead with this, then it becomes part of our charge conference, which will be in October, November. And then at that point, it will be approved at the charge conference. And I believe the board members are also included in the charge conference.
Yeah. So the difference between a church conference and a charge conference, there's very little difference. It's who is there. Both of those are sort of the same thing, and those are the business meetings of the church. The charge conference is usually something that has fewer people. Church leadership, retired pastors are all part of the charge conference. When we make it a church conference, which is usually what we do, any church member can be there and vote. And that's what we're going to do, because this is transparency. We want everyone to have a say in this. And so at that first meeting, we're going to vote on the structure. That'll probably be September. You'll vote on whether or not this model is something that we should adopt for the Brunswick United Methodist Church. At our annual, we always call it charge conference, even though we invite everyone, so it really is a church conference. But our annual charge/church conference, which is usually in November, we'll find out when they set it. The district superintendent sets the date for that. We will approve the people who will be members of the first board.
And the last date to remember is January 1st is our target date to start. So we're taking a whole year to take a look at this. Do we have any questions? I know Ed's back there with a microphone in hand in case you would like to ask anything. Russ.
I'm a little confused. It seems to me that instead of having fewer people involved, we've just inserted another layer. We still have, the committees still exist as, now they're called teams, but you still need all those people on the teams. The board members, are they also going to be members of teams?
They can be if they want.
If they want, they can be.
Yeah.
It appears to me that the people who are going to end up on the board are the same people who are leading the committees now. Probably.
That can be.
So
Yeah.
That is most likely, I believe.
yeah, I think I understand your question. And okay, so staff parish relations committee, finance committee, administrative council, what else am I missing? Trustees, all of those functions will go into the board. The church maintenance part, which is a lot of what the trustees do, so they'll still exist to do church maintenance because they do so much and we can't live without them. But there won't be any more of those other committees. Now, some people, and many of whom are not part of the finance committee, who count the money and are the finance secretary, they'll still be doing their functions. You know, George is still our treasurer. We need those things to still happen. But the other committees will be gone, and those decisions will be made at the level of the board. Those are the committees that we have trouble filling out and finding people to.
What other committees?
Trustees, trustees will still be in
exist.
existence. Staff parish relations, finance, administrative council will all be combined. And so when we talk about teams, some of the things that are very important, like the trustees and the finance people who take care of our daily kind of monthly financial things, we're saying that they're going to become teams because those are important functions. And I wonder if we're getting confused because we're also saying people that do ministry are teams. And you kind of already function like that. In the area of education, you know, we used to have an education committee. It fell apart. It just hasn't existed for some time. No one wants to go to those meetings. But there are people who are passionate about Sunday school. And we have Sunday school teachers. And so we have a Sunday school team already. We're already doing it. Karen has a group of people who help with Bible school. That's a Bible school team. And there is a lot of overlap between the Sunday school team and the Bible school team, but they're not exactly the same. And I think we see the same thing with the meals. We do a lot of meals here. You know, the soup dinner team, there's a lot of overlap with the people who do the breakfasts when we have breakfasts. But, you know, that breakfast team, but they're not exactly the same. Does that help with the idea of the teams?
Russ, one
No?
of the things,
Okay.
one of the things I think is a difference is the leadership board is a commitment to 9 people to meet monthly. The teams are as needed. Does that help at all?
We still have all these teams, but they're reporting to a new layer of people which did not exist before.
But we're eliminating a
What?
layer too.
I don't know what we're eliminating.
We're eliminating, currently you have the church charge conference, okay, that's you, and then we have administrative council, and you have trustees, and staff, parish relations, finance.
You
But
got
they're
to,
still going to exist, just under a different name.
Well, you won't really. You'll have some people do. Well, those teams, the teams are really designed to be in the military we would say the pointy end of the spear. The teams are the people who are doing ministry. The teams, yes, we do have trustees who are doing building maintenance because we have to have that. And yes, we still will have some people counting money and taking care of our accounts and paying the bills because we have to have that. But everything else that's done by trustees, everything else that's done by finance, everything else that's done by staff parish relations is all merging into this one single board. So right now we have a system that is not functioning. We're supposed to have all those 4 committees we've talked about. We're supposed to have 9 to 12 members on each one, with 1/3 of those people rolling off every year. That hasn't happened at this or at any church in a long, long time. If I can find someone who's willing to serve on one of those committees, they're there for life. I mean, it never ends, and we only have a few of them. We have 10 or 12 people right now who are doing all of this work of the church and going to meeting after meeting after meeting. Every month, going to 3 or 4 or 5 different meetings. That's one of the reasons. Yeah.
I just wanted to, I think this system sounds great. You had me at streamlining, and that's because I had a life sentence on the nominating committee. I know how horrible it is to get anybody to want to be on a committee. They balk at the word committee. They run from you.
Yeah.
It's a commitment that they don't want to do. But this church is wonderful on showing up to do anything that we need done. And so the beauty of this system is that you don't have to have that commitment from individuals to be on a committee. Let them be on a team, and that whatever that team is doing, then if that team drops away, like you said, that's fine. They've done what they needed to do. And a person doesn't run from you because you're asking them to have a 3-year commitment on a committee, because they won't give it to you. I've been there. I did it for years. I know what the church will do and won't do.
Yeah.
And this was even whenever we had a really large congregation. People get tired of being on committees. That's just my 2 cents.
And I know, there might be a lot of boxes up there, but there won't be nearly as many people involved in the leadership board as we have on our current committees.
I'd like
or
to
should have.
respond to Mill. The advantage of this is with the leadership board, in one meeting, we can do the work that might take 3 months to do, because we don't have to refer back to the finance, we don't have to go back to trustees to find out what they want to do, we don't have to go back, we can all do the same place. Now, as far as finance is concerned, the finance team is going to feed the data to the team, to the leadership board, so that we can make decisions, finance decisions, knowing all the data that we have there. So that's the advantage of this simplified structure, to be able to do it all in 1 month rather than, carrying it out. If somebody has an idea they want to start and they don't want to wait 3 months to find out if we're able to do that. So that's one of the advantage. I think over here, Karen had a...
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to say is right now, with the way the administrative council is running, the chairs report to administrative council. So we have for years, many, many years, when we get to administrative council, people don't come to it, and half the people there are staff members. And so when we have a vote, something that has to be voted on, we may have one member that can actually vote. If we have this pool of 9 people, they come, and then we have a better representation of our church making the decisions of the major things for the church. And last week, we had one person that could vote on issues that we need to make a decision on, and it's just not very good representation, and this should change that.
On the proposed board, someone has to be in charge. Is there a system to rotate the leadership of that board?
Yeah, we would,
We just talked about that yesterday,
yeah,
actually.
yeah, we would have it, there would be a chair, and that chair, we would set up a guiding principle as to how that chair would work. And probably the board itself would select the chairperson among themselves, and then when that person rotated off, we would select another chair.
Like a lot of boards, every January would be a brand-new board starting, and they would have a reorganizational meeting to find out who's going to be the chair of that board.
And at our annual charge/church conference, you all approve the new members for the leadership board. I mean, they have to be voted on. There's nothing happening. It's all out in the open. And
All right, we don't expect all the questions to be answered or to asked today. This is a long process, and the questions you ask actually help us determine what it is that we need to get out there as far as information. So,
there's a couple over here.
oh, there you are. Barb? Okay.
There you go.
I'm slow.
My concern is, as long as we've been here, we haven't had an issue with leadership or people volunteering and stuff. Other than changing the name, I don't see the benefit, I'll say. We like a lot of people to be involved, but as soon as you ask them to join a committee, like Sharon said, either a committee or a team, call it what you want. But if you say, would you help with such a dinner, that's a different ballgame. They don't figure out that they're part of a certain committee, team. I mean, I don't see what's wrong.
So,
We've been functioning for 100 and some years.
yeah,
Bob and I have been here 66 of those years. And I don't know that we've ever had a, quotes, leadership issue.
well, what we have a problem doing is finding people to serve on those 4 committees, finding people to serve on administrative council, finding people to serve on trustees and
Trustees the leadership's been there for years.
yeah.
They haven't changed.
And many of them are the same people that go, when I go to the finance committee meeting, 3 or 4 of those same people will be at the trustee meeting, and they'll be at the administrative council meeting.
You think that's going to change?
Well, with this leadership board, at least we're going to enact a way of managing the church and governing the church that fits the way we're actually doing things.
So we're actually going to count on less people to make the decisions.
Right now, there's not that many people making decisions. At what Karen just said, at our last administrative council meeting, there was Ron and Evert were the only church members that weren't on the staff. And I guess technically we could say Ron is on staff because of his Kids Hope job. And so we had 2 people there who were able to vote on stuff. And then there was Karen and I and Katie. And
Well, if you filled those empty positions. Wouldn't that solve the problem?
Well, we try, but people don't come to meetings.
You think you're going to fill them with a new name?
I think we will. It's not just a new name, it's a new form of doing everything. This will work. It worked at my last church, made a big difference there. And this is not something this is something that our conference and the United Methodist Church in general is pushing. This is something they're teaching in seminaries. When new pastors are in ordination process and you're commissioned, they're teaching this there. They're really, this is proving effective in a lot of churches. And this focus, because we're changing the focus from being administrators and going to the meetings, this church council, right, and we're changing that focus to vision. Where is God taking this church? That's what the people at the top are looking at. They're not going to look at which rooms Sunday school teachers are going to use. I've seen that in church council meetings. Well, let's use that room. No, we should use that room. We shouldn't be doing that.
Ed?
We should be talking
Ed?
about what God's call for this church is. And that's what this new model lets us do and lets you, the people, do the ministry. Go ahead.
Just talk. I'm good at that. I think what you're presenting is a good idea. Years ago, we had the very same thing in the church, and we really rotated people on the committees. It made a big difference because you get new people in the church that maybe you didn't even know they had these talents. We need to know what the talents of the people in the congregation are, and that's pretty much up to the minister because you talk to all of us. So we need to have our committee set up, have them operate on that 3-year system. It will improve everything. It gives better communication. It gets more work done. People get to know each other, and we get to know each other as a congregation. This worked very well before. It's been several years. We've been in the church here so many years that we've watched things come and go. But I think this is a good idea, and it just needs to be monitored and kept up with. If we have the same people on the committees all the time, we're not letting somebody else in the church that might be very good for that and have them help. If you're on a committee forever, it's more like a job than it is being on a committee. And we all have other lives, but in the congregation we come together. Yes, there's some committees, there's some people that are on the trustees. We need that kind of people in the church. Sometimes we need to add new ones into that same people and have some of those people move on to something else. It's been that way with a couple of committees in the church. And as long as you keep this rotation going and keep people interested, because when people first get on a committee, they're excited about it. They want to do that. And they bring new ideas to the congregation. I think it's an excellent idea. I like it.
Thank you, Joyce. One over here, Ed.
Tom.
Yeah, my perspective, my first reaction is this seems very a great thing. The present method is good, but this seems like an improvement. More efficient, a better way to organize the big picture decision making. My first thought was, you don't want to put the burden of everything on those 9 people. And then I was glad to hear about the teams, because that's really how it should be. We centralize the key decision making, make it better, make sure everybody is there to make the decisions, but share the workload, the bulk of the workload with these teams. That makes perfect sense. Right? It would be unfair to expect those 9 people to do everything. Let's have these teams to share the work and do the bulk. And it's the workers, in a sense, the tip of the spear, right? They're the ones out there doing the bulk of it. So I'm very much in favor of this.
All right, thank you.
All right, we've gone 45 minutes. The presentation itself was 30 minutes, which we are able to do that, and we had 15 minutes worth of questions. We have one more in the back there. Lynn, you got a microphone there, Lynn.
How are people to know that they are in need of people on this committee? You can't, like Sharon, it's not up to her to just go around asking people to be on her committee. How does the congregation know that we even need these people? I don't. I'm here at this church all the
Let
time.
me- let me
and
talk
I don't
about-
know what is needed.
Let me talk about Kids Hope. Every time I need more mentors for Kids Hope, I stand up there and say, we need more mentors for
Yes,
Kids
you
Hope.
do.
And we do the same thing for fish dinners, for the fair booth, for every committee that are coming up that we need people to help. We'll announce that. And we'll let people know that we need help on those committees. Constantly calling people to ask for help. We're putting it on the phone tree. We put it in newsletters. All right, the system we are using now have worked for a long time. The system we're proposing will also work, but it's just a simplified version of that. So that's what we wanted to present to you today. So thank you all for coming and to asking questions. We're going to be hanging around for if you have additional questions, any questions throughout the week or next week, you think of something during the week, feel free to ask us next week.
And we'll have more meetings like this, and you can come and talk to me anytime. Hopefully you can talk to anyone on the discernment team anytime, I'm sure. If you didn't see the list of names, we'll make sure we publish it and put it on the website.
And this meeting right here is being live streamed, so if you want to go home and watch it again, you certainly are free to do that anytime.
All right,
So
thank you
very
all.
much. Have a good week.